Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Good. Very lively group today, so it's very good for me. Well, as Robin mentioned, my name is Joe Vasquez. I'm the Membership and Marketing Director for TCEA. And I'm here today to discuss and talk more about the benefits of our free student membership. I believe each one of you got one of these applications. If you wouldn't mind filling it out and giving it back to me at the end of this presentation. It's a easy to fill form. You can put your personal information, your a more permanent email address that you have so that we can reach out to you after you graduate, all right? All right. So you're probably wondering what TCA is about. We are an educational technology nonprofit that utilizes and gives resources to educators and pre-service teachers like you all, and keeps you up to date with the information regarding EdTech technology. We have been established since 1980. We have been dedicated to the improvement of teaching and learning through technology. We have board of directors who are all also professional educators. And we provide, like I mentioned, tools, resources for integrating technology into schools and districts. So you're wondering why you should join this particular organization. There will be a variety of organizations that you'll have the opportunity to talk to and potentially look into and join as you start your career. But like I mentioned, we curate a variety of information and resources for you to implement technology into your classroom or your curriculum and enhance that learning. We always stay up to date on what's happening on educational technology trends. We are very active in our advocacy as well. So we always try to help the education sector as much as we can. So one of the main benefits that we have as an association is the ability to provide educational webinars for you. We have a variety of different webinars that are done weekly that run from August through May, and every Wednesday, that are created by our professional development staff who are also educators, some former educators as well. These are all webinars that are created for educational technology, and some that are specifically for pre-service teachers. If you look at the blue flyer that I handed out, it gives you additional details of the 4 specific pre-service webinars that we have for y'all. 2 have already been done, but you can obviously look at them, and we can send you an archive link. The beauty of these webinars is that we do record them. We provide them whenever via link so that you can access them whenever, or you can actually join in the discussion as they're taking place. They also do qualify for CPE credits. We have over 80 CPE credits that we have for webinars. And like I mentioned, these are the specific 4 that we have tailored for y'all. Officially a teacher, resources for new teachers as well, tips for planning a new school year, principal perspective for new teachers. I advise you, if you're interested, to sign up, and if you don't have time, we'll make sure to send you the information soon after the webinar has been done. We also have a very active and ongoing list of free recommended apps that are based on iOS, Chrome, and Android. These are a great list to have for whenever you're looking to enhance your curriculum regarding science, STEM, English, you name it. They're all also reviewed by our professional development department, who are also educators, and they're all organized by subject area and by grade level as well. We have a very active blog as well called Tech Notes that we also send a newsletter attached to it. We have daily blogs going out all regarding our major events, all major initiatives regarding educational technology. You can look more on our website at tca.org/blog to receive the latest information. I invite you to look at it, to look at what we have going on. We also blog about our latest and greatest events and all professional development opportunities that we have for you. We also have a variety of community groups, over 100 of them, that are tailored for educators to sort of go in and ask those impending questions that you have. We've created a young educators group for pre-service teachers like you, where you can go in and chat and just talk to over 2,000 individuals for that specific niche. And you can ask those questions that you may have. If that wasn't enough, we're also very active on social media. You can reach us on Facebook, on Twitter. We do have some Pinterest pins that we have as well. Just search for the term TCEA or the hashtag TCEA, and you'll be able to gain access to all of the valuable resources that we offer on the daily. And like I mentioned, we are offering this free opportunity for you. It's normally $49. We're waiving all fees, and we're giving you access to all of our resources for a year. You'll be able to gain access to them the minute we input you into our system. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I look forward to hearing from y'all. Thank you. I can go through each row if you like, and
we'll just pass them to the end of the row. So this side this way, that side that way. And then Tiny. No, ma'am. Everyone tell me. Well, it's not obvious. And what do you teach? Yes, ma'am, I did. I worked at a nonprofit and then I taught as well for just a year. Okay. It's the last one I taught in Thank you very much.
oh, of course. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come by. Yeah. There is a pop-up window that comes in and out that I was having a little bit of problems, so
I may play a quick YouTube video because it's a fun little video.
they won't see it, but this window, it keep on popping up, so it might hinder your ability to see.
I just have a fun YouTube video. It's a couple minutes long. I don't have to play it. It's just kind of...
No, I just don't have audio connected.
Oh, okay. I'm not
All right,
used to
that should be it.
Thank you. Oh.
Yeah, I'm just making sure that anything's said.
I don't know, are we on WPA? What are we on?
Yeah, we're on WPA. Oh, it's set for this. And will you be behind the podium, or do you need a microphone? I'm mean, are you going to be walking, or are you behind a podium?
I can stand behind a podium.
Okay.
Or I can just use my teacher voice if you want.
We're recording, so you have to have a microphone.
Gotcha.
We do have a handle for that set of belt, like an actual handle.
Sure. You ready?
Okay.
You're good. Thank you so much.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm going to pull up the video and I'll be ready.
Flip the switch and you're good. Are you going to introduce the video, or are you just going to play it straight out? 'Cause you're going to have to tell me so I can put it on the screen.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick introduction, say who I am, say who we are,
Okay.
and then I'm
Pause
going
that.
to start the video.
Okay. So basically, once you say who you are, and once I hear you start talk about the video, I'm going to kick it up. Give it a second.
Okay.
It'll pop up. Then I'll make sure the volume's up, and we'll play from there.
I'll be out here and I'll say, I'm going to play a quick video for y'all, and then I'll come
Hopefully
back
the
here
audio
and start
works.
it.
We didn't test it earlier, so we'll see.
Okay. If it does, I'm like, oh, it's a really cool video. Go to YouTube and search
Okay.
for something. I can wing it. No worries. I'm good.
Okay, so our next presenter here today is the Association of Texas Professional Educators. Her name is Kelly Brady, and she is a former fifth grade teacher. She taught in Smithville ISD.
Howdy. I love it. First of all, I want to say thank all of you for choosing education. It's an area where you are desperately needed in communities across the state. I promise you, you are needed and you're wanted out there. So thank you for choosing this very important field to our society in general. What you're going to be doing is going to make a huge impact on hundreds and hundreds of children. You have no idea yet. So thank you. My name is Kelly Riney, and I actually work for the Association of Texas Professional Educators, otherwise known as ATPE, or the organization with the red tablecloth at all the events you go to. ATPE was founded back in 1980, same as TCEA, founded the same year. That means we're both really, really good organizations. But we're really, truly a nonprofit that was founded for educators, or by educators for educators. We're put in place for all of you to help support your career. I'm going to play a quick video about ATPE that kind of tells you a little bit more about us.
One of the most important jobs in the world. Teacher, mentor, hero. You're an educator. And although the rewards are remarkable, so is the risk.
You've never had an incident, you think, oh, it's never going to happen to me. Well, you know, you might not think your house is going to burn down, but you still pay that check every month to your house insurance, to your home insurance. And you wouldn't think to not do that. So why would you let your career that you want to spend 20, 30, 40 years in be jeopardized because you didn't protect yourself? You never know when something's going to happen. Anything can happen at any moment, and you need to be sure that you're covered. ATPE is the state's largest.
Okay, so skip the video. It's a really cool video. You can follow us on YouTube. That's a video that just tells you how to join ATPE and why you should join ATPE, but I'm going to tell you all about us anyways. We are over 100,000 members strong in the state of Texas. We're the biggest educator association in the state of Texas. The cool thing about us is we're owned and governed by our members, and we are only in the state of Texas, so we're not a national union or anything like that. There's 3 different reasons you should join ATPE, and I'm going to tell you about the 3 things. The first one's protection. Then I'm going to tell you about advocacy. And then we're going to talk a little bit about resources that we have for our educators. Protection is one of those components of our membership that is very, very important to have. And when you join today as a student teacher member, it's completely free for you. and you're going to receive $8 million in professional liability coverage for you while you're completing your student teaching out there, regardless of what school district you are in. It's very important to have that when you're going into the field of education. Once you're out there and you're a teacher of record in your classroom and you're getting paid by a district, which is really exciting because you'll have money then, you need to make sure you renew your membership as a first-time professional. Then you're going to add on another coverage benefit under the Employment Rights Defense Coverage Policy. So you'll basically have two components of the insurance policy at that time, and that second one's going to help protect you as a contracted employee. You're also, as a student teacher, going to have access to our staff attorneys. We've got 10 staff attorneys on staff in Austin that help our members day in and day out. That's all they do full-time for a living. Heaven forbid you ever need that, but if you ended up needing to hire an attorney, we have a whole network of attorneys we can contract for you around the state of Texas, regardless of where you end up. But it's really important to have that attorney to go to because you're going to have a lot of questions. Even during your student teaching, you're going to have a lot of questions. In your first year of teaching, you're going to have even more questions. And to be able to call an attorney with any of those questions related to your job in education is going to be incredibly useful. I don't think I'd be back in the classroom without it because things happen that are way beyond your control. And y'all know how it kind of is out there. It's not necessarily the fact that we think y'all are all going to do something terrible. You're all going to be great educators. And you may not even do anything wrong, but we're filled with false accusations. Accidents happen. I've heard of students saying, I know how to get you in trouble. I'm just going to accuse you of something. You know, things happen. It's crazy out there. You need to protect yourself. You've all worked so incredibly hard to get where you're at now. I'm encouraging you to protect that through your career with a professional association with that insurance protection. Hopefully you'll never need it, but it's kind of like when you get in your car and go somewhere. I hope you all put on your seatbelt every single time, right? Does anyone in this room not put on your seatbelt when you get in your car? Because I'm going to call your parents when I get out of here and tell them if you don't. But you do. You don't expect to get in a wreck when you drive somewhere, but it happens. You know, so you just need to be ready for that. And I'm not here to scare you or anything. Odds are it's something you would never need. But in the event it does, like the hurricane that came through, a lot of people didn't expect for their entire house to get flooded like that. But it happens. Cover yourself, protect yourself. You've worked too hard to lose everything. And these days, sometimes it can be too easy to lose everything that you've worked for. But that's all I'm going to say about the protection. $8 million professional liability for student teachers. As soon as you sign up with me today with the free membership, your liability will be effective for your student teaching semester coming up. And it'll actually be good through next July 31st. If, maybe you're doing 2 semesters of it. I'm not sure why that would occur, but as long as you're not being paid by school district, you'll be covered under that student teacher membership when you're in the classroom. The next thing I want to tell you about is advocacy. Did anyone in this room, and you can raise your hand and tell me, who all followed the legislative session this year and what was going on down in Austin? Did anyone kind of watch any of that, keep up with it? I see a couple hands. That's good. I'm also here today to encourage every one of you, since you're going into the field of education, pay attention to what's going on in Austin. Pay attention to what's going on that's going to affect your career in education. Pay attention to what's going to affect your retirement. This legislative session was crazy. There are so many things that happened, and there were so many attacks on education down in Austin this year. Unfortunately, our association, we have a full team of lobbyists that work down in Austin that are constantly fighting for educators across the entire state of Texas. They're fighting day in and day out for your rights as an educator and just for public schools in Texas. We very much support public schools in Texas being fully financed and you having the resources once you get out there to properly educate your kids. The schools need funding, so we fight for that as well. Just because your lobbyists are representing you, whether you're a member or not, they're fighting for you. But we need educators to stand up more for yourself, stand up for your career, pay attention to what's going on. We're a really strong organization. I would definitely say when there's something facing public education, we're one of the first go-to organizations that people ask about it. But we definitely need y'all to also fight the battle with this. And ATPE offers multiple ways you can help do that, when you're in education. First of all, I want you all to write down a website that I'm going to give you. There should be a little ink pen in your white bags if you didn't bring one, but I know as Aggies you're all super prepared and probably brought your own ink pen, right? The website is teachthevote.org. That's teach, the as in T-H-E, vote.org. Check it out. It's basically a blog that's managed by our lobbying team, and it posts updates all the time. When you first visit it, scroll down to the bottom left corner and sign up for updates, and you'll get updates every Friday at 5 p.m. on the dot, and that'll help you keep up with what's going on facing public education down in Austin. And at the national level, when it's something that's going to apply to you directly, even if it has to do with your retirement that none of you are probably thinking about yet. That's many, many years down the road. But it needs to be in the back of your mind still, even at this young of an age. It needs to be in the back of your minds because it's coming. Everyone will eventually get to retire. I promise you. Hopefully, if we keep fighting for your rights for your retirement benefits. So we need y'all to stand up for yourself. Help us out. They continually tell us they don't hear from educators enough. They hear from the other side. So once you get out there, check it out. One other resource I'm going to tell you about that can help you be an advocate for yourself in education. Our members actually have access to something we call Advocacy Central. Members can go in there and very quickly send emails and communications to their lawmakers with just a couple clicks of your mouse button. And again, it's a resource on our website that's there for members only. It's super cool, and it allows you to voice your opinions and concerns with a click of a mouse, and it sends you directly to your specific lawmakers based on what your zip code is. On the other side, I told you, you can also research candidates on teachthevote.org. So once it becomes voting season, go in there, enter your zip code, and check out who all is running for office in your specific zip code, and it'll give you the list, and you can see how they answer questionnaires and all kinds of stuff. So there's advocacy. I hope you all will definitely take that to heart because it's so, so important. One last thing I want to tell y'all about, and this is a pretty broad topic, are the resources we offer. Of course, I already told you have access to our attorneys anytime you need them, which is great. But also, we have free online professional development for our members. So you can take courses any time of day online for free, and it counts towards your requirements that you have to have every 5 years to maintain your certification. ATPE has also partnered with many, many different corporate partners that give our members lots of really cool discounts. One of my favorite is Office Depot Office Max one. As members, you'll get a little card in the mail that you take in when you go shopping there. Regardless of what you're buying, most every time I've gone in there and presented my little card at checkout, it saved me money every time. As a teacher, you can make lots of copies, lots and lots of copies. You're going to go through paper like crazy, I'm telling you. If you happen to need to go by there and make copies, it saves you tons and tons of money. I talk to our members all the time. They're like, I saved over $100 on what I had to print out for this thing I'm doing. It's an amazing discount. We also have discounts on a lot of other stuff like cruises, vacations, theme parks, like Schlitterbahn. Anyone like going to Schlitterbahn? I know I do, and I saved $8 a ticket this summer. It was great. Lots of savings and discounts for our members. We also do a book study in the summer. We have 2 different book studies that you'll see come out with ATPE in the summer. And who all in here is on Facebook? Anyone? Yay, I figured. I know it's kind of, all the old people are on it now, so it's not really that cool anymore. But ATPE does have a Facebook group that you all can join called ATPE Educator Exchange. And you can go there and actually post questions for other members that are in that group. And we have some veteran mentors in there that will help out new educators that have specific questions. It's a great little group to join and just check it out. Ask questions, we're there to help. And again, it's called ATPE Educator Exchange. Those are the main things I wanted to tell you about. Now I'm going to talk real quick about what's in your bag. If all of you will get your little bag out, pull this book out. You're going to need the small book. Inside your small book here, you have your application that's on the inside of it. If you can pull that application out of that book, go ahead and fill it out. When you fill it out, you want to check mark student teacher. Student teacher is the category that's going to give you your professional liability coverage. So again, check mark student teacher. And I'm going to collect them all in a minute, but I believe a young lady may have a question. Did you do it this year? Okay. If you did it online, you should be good to go, as long as you did the student teacher one. Well, I mean, if you already have one in the system, it would create a duplicate, but they'll find you and they'll get rid of the duplicate. So, but if you did it online for this year, now you have to renew every year, you should be okay. Just make sure it's a student teacher membership. Also on the front of your book, you have a little ticket, because I have a couple door prizes for y'all. And I pre-stapled all of these. There's 250 of you guys. Y'all made me actually work. I was sweating passing those out. Those books are heavy. But no, you all have this little ticket here. And so I have some door prizes. But actually, I need to find my door prize bucket. I hope I have it. Hang on. Bear with me. It's in my little plastic box back here. Yeah, there it is. All right. So,
We have some that don't have a bag yet.
okay, yeah, get your bag, because I'm going to draw for a couple door prizes real quick. If you don't have a bag, Joe's bringing around a couple. I should have plenty for everyone. It'll give y'all a minute to fill out your application. There, you can have mine.
Oh, I just have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no,
I thought you needed a bag.
So I already filled this out online, but I put college student instead of student teacher. So if I fill
Yep.
this out again, it'll like replace
Yes.
the other one? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, if you filled it out online and check mark student teacher before online, or I mean, if you filled it out online and did college student doesn't give you professional liability protection. So make sure if you did it online, you did the student teacher and not college student. That was a great question. Okay, does everyone have a bag now? Okay, raise your hand if you do not have a bag. That way I can wrap up and not take up too much time, because I know you'll have more people coming in to speak. The door prizes I've got 2 Target gift cards. They're for $15 each. I'm sorry, they're just 15. We're a nonprofit, y'all. You know, we have to spend our members' money very wisely. I've got a couple really cool little bottles, some notebooks, and some really cool little ATPE blankets. All right, do we all have our bag now with our little coupon? I need a volunteer to come draw the first ticket. Must be present to win, because I know I had a few extra books that didn't get passed out. I'll draw myself, I guess, and no volunteers. I don't want to help someone out. You're Aggies. No one wants to help. My goodness. Okay, are you ready? The first one is 532-0003. 532-0003. Come on down. Are you the winner? All right. You have to draw the next one, though. There's a catch. You get to pick a prize, and then you draw the next winner. All right. Target gift card. Yay. And now she's going to pick the next lucky person. 531-9977. And I'm going to ask the winners, if you don't mind, to kind of stand up here. I'm going to snap your picture, too. 531-9977. Come on down. You've got 3 blankets left, 2 notebooks, 2 bottles, and a $15 Target gift card to choose from. What's she going to pick? Any guesses? Can we start a gambling pool? It's the Target gift card. I knew it. All right, draw the next one. All right, we have 531-9840. 531-9840. Anyone? All right, come on down. 531-9840. Come on down. She's taking her time. Y'all go ahead and draw the next person so we can get the show on the road. All right, the next one is 531-9889. 531-9889. Oh, you don't have to give it to me. I trust you. No one else is fighting you for it, so you're good.
Thank you.
And here comes our next winner. I was going to get her picture. She doesn't want her picture. It's okay. All right, the next winner is 531-9991. 531-9991. Oh, you've got to pick a prize. Would you like a blanket, a bottle, or a little note taker? All right. Here she comes. All right, there's going to be 4 more winners right quick. 4 more winners. I'm trying to hurry. 531-9972. 531-9972. Either one. 3 more winners. 531-9990. 9990. 531-9990. Must be present to win. Let's draw. Oh, there she is. Come grab one. Okay, 2 more winners. 531-9866. 9866. Are you in the house? Here she comes. And one more. Last lucky person. You're all lucky, though, because you're going into education, and honestly, it's a great career. 531-9824. 531-9824. Do we have 9824? All right, that's all of them. All right, so you should have your applications filled out. Go ahead and start passing them this way, and that way, whichever way she told you to pass them earlier, and we will pick them up. If you have the TCEA one, it's free as well. Go ahead and pass them with that, and we'll sort them at the back. But I'm going to grab a quick picture of my lucky winners, and y'all, I will be back there if you have any questions for me. And again, it's free, so sign up for both of them and check them out. Thank you, everyone. Is it on yet? Howdy. So I normally don't get to come to these orientations, but I was so excited because I had to come back to Texas A&M and meet all of you. I'm Paige Williams. I'm the Director of Legislation for the Texas Classroom Teachers Association. I'm also one of our staff attorneys that should anyone have any issues or just want to ask a quick question, maybe me that you're connected to. I take calls day in and day out, and I'm always happy to do so because I have the best clients of any attorney could ever have because I get to represent educators. You've heard a lot about the other organizations. We offer a lot of the same benefits, $8 million in liability insurance as well, and I couldn't agree more that you guys need to have that liability insurance. You need access to attorneys. You have access to 9 attorneys. We take your calls immediately through a 1-800 number or even through email.
and we're happy to do so. We take questions that are very simple. If you're just doing a quick check of, is this something, my school district should be doing? Is this a problem? We answer that all the way up to, I think that I might be getting in trouble. What do I do now? So we encourage you to have that liability insurance, that access to attorneys as well. We also have a $250,000 teacher defense fund, which is something that we have on top of your liability insurance. Should you need an outside attorney immediately, we can fund it right away. We also offer over 40 hours of free online CPE that counts towards your certificate as well. Our membership for student teachers is also $0. But should you choose to join after that, your first year active membership is $90 a year. And we do that because we know as teachers, I advocate all year long for you guys to get more pay. And we really want your dollar, more bang for your buck that needs to stretch, and we want to provide the best service we can without charging more than we need to. We are also a teacher-only organization that's not affiliated with a national union, so all of your money stays straight in Texas. It's not going to any other outside groups. It's just going to our membership and to represent you guys the best that we can. One of the things that I provided for you guys is this survival guide. And we want to make sure whether you join TCTA or not, that you guys get a copy of that. Some people, some ed prep programs actually use it as part of their curriculum. It is kind of a primer, an intro to everything you need to know about your rights, your responsibilities going into the education profession. And if you can't find an answer in this, you can give me a call. And it's so useful. Now, she talked about the legislature, and I'm heavily involved in that. And so some of this is going to change. You can find the changes on our webpage after the new survival comes out, because every session your rights change a little bit, the district's responsibilities change a little bit, and we do need you guys to be loud and vocal and to participate in the legislative process, in the voting process. That makes a difference for what we can do for you. And one of the reasons I always talk about this so much is because it's my job and I love it. And we've also been blessed with a wonderful team that has been ranked the top teacher lobby group for the past 12 consecutive years. So I like to bring that up because we're really proud of that. I guess right now what I just want to talk to you guys about, and I'm not going to talk to you guys for a really long time, is just the fact that as everyone else has said, you are entering into a very selfless profession, and we really, really appreciate that, and we thank you for that. And we want to know what we can do to better serve you. And so we always solicit that, so if you have any suggestions, let us know. But we want you guys to be involved. We want you to know that you are appreciated more than anything. And so I like to go around to all of our members as much as possible to solicit that input for what you're seeing in your district. And all of you guys, now that we have districts of innovation, are going to be entering into different situations. And so that's one of the reasons that we want you guys to have the survival guide. That's one of the reasons that we want you guys to be informed, because what one district does may not be what another district does, and it could be legal, things regarding teacher certification, et cetera. So if you have any questions, we want you to get a hold of us, and we want you to join. We offer many of the same benefits, like I said. And like I said, I don't typically do this, so I apologize if I'm rambling a little bit. But I just want, because I'm the Director of Legislation, to really emphasize the fact that it's part of my job to keep you guys informed. You can sign up online for our email alerts. We do a daily capital update. We're on Facebook, like everybody else is, but I'm also on Twitter, and you can always keep up with me there at TCTA_page. And TCTA also has a Twitter. And so we give you guys up to the minute, in the middle of the meeting type hearing what we're hearing from members in the field right away. Keep you guys informed as soon as possible. But really what I want to do is just open it up for any questions that you guys may have, because I know you've sat through a few of these presentations today and a lot of the information is the same. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, and let me emphasize, of course, what I think is the most important thing about TCTA. We are teachers only. If you work directly with students, whether you be a counselor, a librarian, a nurse, something like that, we only represent those who are directly working in the classroom with teachers. We don't allow community members, and we don't represent any administrators. And we have limited ourselves to that type of representation so that we don't have any conflicts of interest, so that we can advocate what we think is best solely for the teachers of the profession, solely for those working with the students, because that's not always the same as what the principals think. That's not always the same as what school board members or superintendents think. We only care about those who are working directly with our students. I mean, that's who we advocate on behalf of, and that's who we enjoy representing. So that's one of the benefits of working with TCTA, is that you'll be a class all by yourselves. So thank you very much.
So, like Dr. Reckley said, feel like I'm almost done, and I'm done with all my coursework. And then I realized that now I have to do prelims, and then I have to do the oral defense, and then I have to finish the first 3 chapters, and I have to go to IRB, and I have to do the research, and I have to write the paper. So I really was excited to finish my coursework until I realized what's left in front of me. And that's a lot, but I am going to get it done. And I really appreciate this opportunity. I wouldn't have missed coming up here for the world. Sometimes I have to send a crew up here depending on where we're at with work in HISD, but I'm really honored to be somebody that's gone to school and continues to go to school at Texas A&M. And the presentation I have today hopefully will benefit everybody regardless of where they're at. And I'll get to the specifics about that in a short period of time. But I want to, tell you a little bit about myself, because I think when people look at me, I think they probably make some assumptions. And so what I'd like you to do is just based on what you see, kind of talk with a neighbor, and just for a few seconds while I get this ready, and just where I'm from, what you think I've done, and who I am, just a little bit, if you can. Just make an assumption about me, just be me standing up here right now going to A&M. Just 30 seconds. And I'm going to quiz you and see how many people are right. All right, anybody want to take a guess about anything? Anybody? Yes, ma'am. I'm not originally from Texas, true story. Been here 26 years. From New York, well, you got the N right. I'm from North Dakota. So we're getting close. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. I do like to smile and laugh a lot. I do think that we are if we made it this morning, I truly believe that we have the opportunity to be better today than we were yesterday. And so I'm very reflective, and I'm just blessed to have the life I've had. Anybody else? Yes. I love my job. But I'm going to tell you how I got to where I was at today, because it's a little bit different than what most people would think. My mom had me when she was just a kid. Most of my academic years were spent on Fort Totten Indian Reservation. And if you Google it right now, like not right this second, but if you Google it, Fort Totten Indian Reservation is just as crappy now as it was back then. Good teachers weren't flocking to the res to be change agents and difference makers. They just weren't. And to be honest with you, most of my life when I was younger, I made every wrong decision you could make. School was the least important thing for me. I was running with the wrong crowd, doing the wrong things most of school and when I went to school. And finally had an educator, still an educator to this day, is principal at Minnewacan High School, named Ron Carlson, who pulled me out of class one day and gave me a different schedule. Well, first of all, he had two pieces of paper in his hand, and he said, I want you to tell me what these two papers are. And so I looked at one of them. I said, oh, that's my schedule. And I took small engine classes and auto mechanics. I don't, first of all, like getting dirty that much, but they seemed fun because I would get in a bus, leave the res, and go to Devil's Lake and take classes. So I'd be on the bus half hour during the day and then a half hour after school, right? So I got an hour out of school, and he said, you're right, this is your schedule. And then he gave me another schedule and it had academic courses on it. It had math and English, algebra, all those other courses. And he said, guess what this is? And I said, somebody else's schedule? And he said, no, this is your schedule. I said, I don't want to take math and English and all those classes, because back then you really had to take just a few courses in high school, and you didn't have to take the strong academic courses like we do here in Texas. I don't even think in Texas you had to do it then. But so I said, I'm not taking that schedule. And he said, you look me in the eye and tell me this is really what you want to do. And he said, just wait. He goes, I want you to go down to the bathroom. I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to ask yourself if you're happy with the person you see, and if what you're going to do right now is going to allow you to be a better person tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that. And so he sent me down to the bathroom. I went down there, combed my hair, and, came back. It's when you had long hair and, in the back and short on the sides, leave it long in the back, and had the comb hanging out the back. And I went back and I looked him in the eye and said, yep, that's exactly what I want to do. And he said, well, you have the rest of the day to think about it, because tomorrow this is your schedule. And I got into class and I started feeling really, really guilty, because here this guy I understood really cared about me. And he wanted me to do better, and he thought I could do it. So after this dilemma of should I do it or should I not do it, he comes to me and he takes that out of my hands and he said, okay, here's your new schedule. You're too dumb to make a good decision, but you're really too smart not to be in these classes. And so finally, for once, I had somebody that held me accountable, that had higher expectations in me than I ever had in myself, and knew that I could do it. And, they say that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community, and I agree with that. And that's amazing. But I think you yourselves, one person, can be a change agent and a difference maker. I think one person can help somebody else help other people. And that's what I hope that you all choose to do going into education. Because when all the dust settles at the end of the day, there's, right now there's kind of two roads in front of you that you can take. And one road's, the interstate where you could put it on cruise control. You can go 75, 80 miles an hour. You don't run into any obstacles. Then the other road is this little trail, and you're on a bike, and the wheels may not be, inflated, and there's mud, and there's rain, and there's curves and everything. And that's another road that you can take. And that road's not as easy. It's a little bit longer. It's a lot more work. There's times you're going to get stuck and wish you would have turned around and took the other road. But when you get to the end of that trail and the dust settles and you're sitting on your patio and you've helped people, really helped people, there's nothing better. And that's kind of where I'm at right now in my journey, is all those things that you did, you've forgotten about. People don't forget about it. They remember it. And it makes them better people. And when they're better people, they help other people. And that's what, education is all about. It's taking those tough roads when nobody else really wants to take it, and you get to the end. And A&M is preparing you to go anywhere to be a change agent or a difference maker. And what my presentation is about today is it really is going to talk to three different groups of you. Some of you haven't selected yet where you want to student teach. So we're going to talk about making that choice. Some of you know where you're going to student teach, so we're going to talk about what you really need to do as a student teacher to get the most out of that experience. And then the next thing is, can we put the next thing that we're going to talk about is then what? What are we going to do after you've student taught to get your first job, the right job for you, and not only get a job, but be successful for doing it. I started off North Dakota. It was kind of an interesting situation because I met my wife there. We've been married 27 years. She fell in love with me at first sight. Sure, I really didn't. So finally, after a while, she finally went out with me at the end of the day. At the end of the date, this spent money I didn't have, and we enjoyed. My name's Jeff. We enjoyed the evening, and so I'm waiting to say goodnight. She said, "Oh, goodnight, Chad." And I'm like, okay. So keep in mind, there's no cell phones or anything like that. And we were at the group, so it wasn't really a date. I call it date. She doesn't. She says we were just with friends. And so didn't have cell phones, didn't have any other form of communication. And I waited and waited the next day for her to come and get her mail, because I knew that everybody in college, goes and gets your mail. I don't know how it works in college today, but there was a place where you'd got your mail. So I got up 8 o'clock in the morning, wait, about 2:30, somewhere in there. Here she comes walking, and I'm like, okay, I just got to casually act like I'm just here getting my mail. And I go, "Hey, Peg." She goes, "Oh, hi, Steve." Now, my name's Jeff. Not Chad, or it wasn't Steve. And so it took a while for her to come around, but she finally did. Our families are very, very different. My mom never stopped getting married and getting divorced, and had a lot of problems. In her family, in the history of her family, they've never had any of those issues. There's no divorce in her family. She's one of 8. Her dad's one of 14. I honestly thought for about 3 to 4 or 5 years that it's really weird. Like, y'all, this is a big fake relationship. Like, you all really can't like each other that much, but they do. Her mom and dad are amazing. Some people complain about their in-laws. I think mine, are the most amazing people I've ever met. But when they, of course, like any good parents, found out my history and my background and all the issues my mom had, they were really skeptical about our relationship. But anyways, I didn't dare ask permission to marry his daughter, because he would have said no. So I asked about January of our senior year in college, probably too early, but that was normal back then for us to get married. We'd been looking for jobs all of our junior year, senior year. We looked in Minnesota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Winnemucca, Elko, Nevada, Reno, Nevada, and we couldn't find any jobs. And there was only 3 weeks left. There was a job fair at University of North Dakota, and then graduation was the next Saturday, and then the next Saturday was June 1st, and we were getting married, and we still had no jobs. Went to a job fair at University of North Dakota. Houston was there, and they offered us both jobs. And at that time, it was $21,000 apiece. which was $1 billion back then in 1991. $42,000. We couldn't Google Houston. There's no cell phones, no internet in 1991, nothing. The only thing that we knew about Houston was what we saw in Cops, which that's the only thing my mother and father-in-law knew about Houston too, so it wasn't a great sell. And anyway, so we're driving back to college, and we made the effort. We made the decision we weren't going to tell our parents we were going to Houston until after we got married, because they were paying for the whole wedding, and we hadn't gotten married yet. And they don't believe in divorce, so we knew once we got married, we were going to be okay. Might not have been friendly, but we were okay. So graduated the next Saturday, got married, took all of our stuff back to where we bought it. We got up really early on Sunday with our families, opened up all of our wedding gifts. We took a horse trailer. We hauled them up to Bismarck, North Dakota, and this was one of the first years where the Blue Lot, where stores actually opened on Sunday. Back in the day, they weren't open at all on Sundays, really any stores. Took all of our gifts back. They didn't know. They thought we were just taking them to storage. Got cash. A couple days later, we're going on our honeymoon. We get in the car. I make sure the door's locked, roll the window down, and like her dad said, what's the big secret? Like, where are you all going on your honeymoon? And we said, we're going to Houston, Texas. And said, why are you going to Houston, Texas in the middle of summer? Well, actually, we're going to work there. And I'm glad I only had the window open about that much. Wasn't happy. But my wife's bawling all the way. It's a 23-hour drive. She's crying. I'm like, oh, man, what did we do? We got down here, thought we'd be here for a year or two, and fell in love with it. We fell in love with the opportunity to help kids. We fell in love with the opportunity to really be difference makers. And we had the opportunity, because we were both teachers at that time, to go back and spend summers there. And a couple years into it, I became an assistant principal, did that for a while. I'm a secondary guy. My first gig was an assistant principal at an elementary school. And I started in Monday, right after Christmas break. On Saturday, I just got my 6th different black belt, and it took an 8-hour test. And I just was at the top of the world. I felt like, it was amazing. I just got this test all these years for this next belt. And by 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, I honestly was getting choked out by a kindergartner. And the tie was in my neck. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm a secondary guy. I didn't realize kindergartners were so tough, but fell in love with it. And realized I spent a lot of money getting martial arts tests that didn't do me any good in the real world. Then I was building principal, and then I've been in charge of HR department at the elementary level, intermediate middle level. For 6 years, I was in charge of high schools and 9th grade centers, and going on 3 years in HISD as the Officer of Human Capital. And I've absolutely been very, very blessed to have the career that I've had. And this is not an advertisement for HISD. What I'm here to talk about is you being the best you can be, regardless of where you go. And that's the great thing about coming to A&M, is that they've prepared you to go anywhere. So that's a big, long story about me. And the reason I shared all of that is because when you have your own kids, they need to know you. And if kids don't have an emotional connection with you as their teacher, all this theory that you've learned at school means nothing. The science of teaching means nothing if you don't incorporate it with the art of teaching. The relationships and the connections you have really will take all this theory and allow you to really put it into practice. So I want somebody to share a little bit about them and their background, and then we're going to get this bad boy started. Anybody, now that I've done, anybody want to share a little bit about their story, where they come from? Yes. Yep. Here you go.
Oh, okay. Cool. My name is Daisha Hurd, and I'm from Houston, Texas. My mom had me when she was very young as well. She's going to be 40 in October, and I have a brother who's 24. I'm 21, and my sister's 19. So I can relate to having like a child mom. And I graduated from Eisenhower High School. Yeah, swoop. And this is my 4th year at Texas A&M, and I can't believe I'm about to graduate. A little overwhelming, excited. Thanks and gig 'em.
Awesome. Okay, anybody else real quick? And today we're going to do some things that we're going to practice getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay? And I'm going to have you all do things that you're not comfortable with, because when you're a teacher, you have to do things that are not comfortable for you to be the person that you need to be during that lesson. And the only way you can get comfortable being uncomfortable is to be uncomfortable, right? Anybody else want to share real quick? Okay. Yeah. Yes. Here, pass this back. Thank you. Okay. Okay, you go, Andy.
Hi, my name is Christina Seva. I'm 14 schools growing up, and with my family. We've moved quite a lot. I have 4 years with me. So just the simple fact of being in 14 different schools and 14 different countries and abroad, that I just really like the variety of education experiences I've been able to have throughout my life, and just kind of want to apply that to another place. So I really like it. So it's really this level of learning
Awesome. Okay, you, and we'll get started.
Okay, so I'm Valerie, and I was born in Chihuahua, Mexico, also. I'm from Lake Jackson, which is 45 minutes from Houston, so I'm very familiar with Houston ISD, and that's kind of where I want to teach. My parents got divorced also when I was 3, so I never had like a really like fatherly figure until recently when my parents got married. My mom was a principal, and my aunt was also a teacher. My uncle was a teacher, so like all my family background, they've been teachers. So I'm like very excited about education overall and like as a whole, and just I'm also bilingual. And yeah, I'm very excited for whatever the future holds.
So the reason that I wanted you to meet the 4 of us is because a lot of times as educators, we only see, right, what people look like on the outside, and that's kind of what we may plan for. But until we get to know what's on the inside, we really can't plan for anything. We don't know the trials people are going through. It doesn't matter what they look like until we really get to know them. The lessons that we're planning really are not being planned very purposefully. And you can't really work relentlessly if you haven't really planned purposefully. And all of today is going to get about doing things beyond making assumptions and truly getting to know the kids that you serve, and then leveraging the communities that they come from and their cultural assets to help deliver that lesson better. Does that make sense? Okay. So this says hiring process. Me and you, we've chatted about that. Am I in the right area? Okay. So how many of you have not selected where you want to go to student teach yet? Okay. So about a third of you. How many of you know right now where you're going to student teach? Okay. And then how many of you are set to student teach? Nobody in here is student teaching right now, are you? Okay, so about half of you know where you want to go, and about half of you don't know. So what I'd like you to do right now is, for those of you that, whether you know or you don't know, I want you to turn to somebody and just take a couple minutes, and why is where you student teach so important? Why do you think that is so important to choose the right location? Why did you, if you've chose it, share why you chose that location? And be honest, if it's just because it was close to home and it was easy, that's okay. And if you haven't chosen yet, what do you think about why choosing the right location is important? Okay, go ahead and just have it says 2 minutes, but it's about 30 seconds. So did you guys choose yet your location? Yeah. What are you looking for in a location?
I just want to be here because I'm on the club gymnastics team and I want to be.
Oh, okay. Got it. How about you?
Around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Okay, so who heard something really, really good they feel like they want to share? Like from the person that told them about why it's so important to choose the right location. Did anybody say something to you that you felt like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense? And if so, what was it? So nobody said anything good? Yes. Or no, or you can, or if you heard something from your partner, like why you think it's choosing the right location matters. It is. You could say that. Yep. Got it. So if you didn't hear that, she's got a child that's going to be in kindergarten, and that was important for her to choose the district where her child's going to go. Did you say daughter? Okay, awesome. Anybody else? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. When you're student teaching, if you really get a chance to audition. You're there. And the thing, we're going to talk a little bit about student teaching and go into a little bit of detail, but the one thing, if you don't listen to anything else I say about student teaching, is student teaching is not a sprint. I mean, it's not a marathon. It's a sprint. It's really, if you want to get the most out of student teaching, it's 7 days a week. It's 14 to 16 hours a day, doing as much as you possibly can. And that sounds like a lot, but when you student teach, that's your opportunity to learn the craft, to start incorporating the art of teaching into the theory and the science of teaching that you've learned so far. So you're learning your craft. It's where you make mistakes. Education is about learning from your mistakes. And a lot of times when I go check on our student teachers and see how they're doing or watch them do a lesson, a lot of times they'll make mistakes, and that's okay. The only way making a mistake is not okay is if you don't learn from it. And so one of the important things I want you to do as your student teaching, and really just as a person in general, is be a reflective practitioner. Every single day for as long as I remember, I've got those little journaling notebooks, the black and white ones that you buy for like 40 cents. I spend about 15 minutes, no matter how busy I am, every single night, and I reflect on my day. And I basically try to highlight and celebrate, like, what good things happened today. And if I get a chance to be around tomorrow, what am I going to try to do better? What am I going to try to do better? If I were to have the exact same day tomorrow, what could I, even if it was a great day, doesn't mean you can't get better, right? So be a reflective practitioner. Take those lesson plans every single night, take your day and celebrate your wins, because if you don't celebrate them, you may feel like you're never winning. But there's that look that you get from a student that you hadn't been able to reach before. There's that communication from a parent that you never thought you might be able to communicate with. There's that pat on the back that might have, a recognition from some of the administrators. Celebrate the wins, but also you don't have to be bad to get better. And so be very, very reflective and learn from your mistakes. And then if I'm teaching a class, I have to have with itness to figure out, am I bombing right now? And if I'm bombing right now, what do I have to do right now? Wait till the next day or the next class? Or what can I do if I realize things aren't going well right now? I can change it, right? I can change what I'm doing and regroup. And that's what great teachers do. And that is not easy to do. And that's where you learn as a student teacher how to change things. And you're also going to learn that planning very purposefully is so, so important. And here's what a lot of your cooperating teachers unfortunately will do, is they're going to plan this one lesson, and this is where you're going to be awesome, for all the kids, right? They're going to plan this one lesson for all the kids. And then in every classroom, if you've done the lesson right, what's going to start happening is you're going to have three groups that always emerge, that always, that will always unfold. And that's kids that get it, kind of get it, and they don't get it. If you've put that lesson at the right level of rigor, you're going to get kids that get it, kind of get it, and don't get it, right? And so if you've planned for that, guess what's going to happen with all the momentum in the class? It's going to move forward. And what people think, differentiation is not having 22 kids and doing 22 different things. Differentiation, good solid differentiation, is knowing your kids and their learning styles well enough that you kind of have an idea of who's going to get this lesson. You have an idea who's not going to get it and who's going to get it, and you plan for that so that things continue to move forward. It's almost should be against the law, and we really need misdemeanors to be handed out in a lot of places across the United States, because what group, the getters, kind of getters, or don't getters, do you think in the United States in a general classroom get underserved the most? The getters, kind of getters, or don't getters? Say somebody. The getters. The getters are, we're going to be killed in the United States until we figure out how to continue the momentum forward for the getters. Because as human beings, which is awesome, we don't want to leave people behind, right? So we stop all the momentum for the kids that are getting it so that we can address the kind of getters and the don't getters. You have to plan for those kids that are getting it to keep moving forward, or they're going to be discipline problems, or they're eventually going to be kind of getters or not getters. And that's what the planning purpose fully is all about. And that's really why it's so important for you to develop that skill of lesson planning and getting to know your kids. It's where you begin your legacy, right? That's where you begin your legacy. And it's the foundation of who you will become. Because as your student teaching, what is so important about that job is that when you're first being hired, whether it's in that district or another district, they're going to wonder how you student taught, and who do you think your most important evaluation is going to be from? Your cooperating teacher, right? Okay, so I looked at the clock when I put that slide up, and we spent close to 2 minutes on that one slide. And I was talking and was trying to distract you from that one slide. And I'm going to try to integrate teachable moments into everything I do to model for you today. What did you notice about that last slide? I'm not going to, I don't want you to concentrate on it now. That's why I flipped to the next slide. Anything wrong? Do you see it? Okay. Why do you think it's so important not to have typos in your presentation? There's 18 in this presentation, by the way. So yeah, and imagine if you have a resume and you've done an amazing job student teaching, and then guess what? You have something there where, it says insert name here or put email address here. That static resume is a lot easier. So if you see those in this presentation, imagine how they're going to see, on your resume or when you're doing presentations in your class. When you're looking for a location, and I heard a lot of you say this, you're looking for a location because it's what? For student teaching. Convenient, right? I mean, to be honest, I can live at home, I can do this, I can continue to do that. But if you really, really want to use student teaching to benefit you the most, find a place that's going to challenge you, that's going to really allow you to be the best you can be, What do doctors do when they want to be a doctor? They have to take a rotation where? In just, just a regular family practice? Where do they go? The ER, right? Because if you can handle it in an ER, guess what you're going to do when things are slow? You're going to be a lot more successful. That's why the doctors in other fields, they put you in these internship opportunities that really, really press you early to see if you've got what it takes. Find a place that will really put your skills and your talent to the test. It makes you better, takes you out of your comfort zone. Again, you want to find a place where you can be comfortable being uncomfortable. But also, you have to couple that with, are they going to support you? Are they going to check on you? Are they going to help you grow? Are they going to coach you? Are they going to develop you? No universities, and I do work with different universities across the United States, from Michigan State, University of Michigan, Bowling Green, Ohio State University. Nobody likes to hear me say this, but if I were placing you and I was the person that decided who your cooperating teacher was going to be, like, I would put you with somebody really crappy for half the time, because you can learn regardless of what situation you're in, even the whole time, about what not to do, right? You can learn. And so if you have a bad student teaching experience, here's what I would suggest. I would find the mirror, and I'm not, and I know this sounds brash and I don't mean it to be, but I'd find a mirror, and that's who you're going to blame that on. Because the only way you're not going to find a good opportunity to learn in your student teaching is if you don't make the most out of the opportunities you have. So you can go into a bad situation, and who's going to make that better? You are. Because there are going to be things that you're going to learn not to do. You want to take some time to get out and see other teachers teach and learn from the mistakes that your current teacher's making. But you also don't want to sit there and not learn anything by putting your best effort in, and that's when you want to involve, your university supervisor, the administrative staff that you can, so that you can be successful. Also, somebody mentioned the next bullet. It's probably where you're going to, if you've done a good job, it's probably where you're going to get hired. It's probably where you have the opportunity, and here's what's great about that. If you student teach where if you get hired where you student teach, technically you're still a first-year teacher, but are you really first year? No, because you know where to go to, what's on the culture there, what's important around there. So really, if you know you want to get a job somewhere and you feel like they're going to hire you, then that's a great opportunity for you to student teach there. If you want to student teach someplace where there's no chance of getting hired, you still want to be the best you can be. But, if you haven't already selected a spot, start thinking about that. And then we already talked about that last bullet. How do you find the right location? You ask. Those of you that have not student taught yet, ask your professors. Ask the people that have student taught. Ask what district should I go to? Then do your research, and then actually go visit. Takes time to go visit those districts. If they want student teachers, they're going to take you out to campuses. You almost can select where you want to go, and then do your best to discover the options and the opportunities that are out there. We talked a little bit about this, so I don't want to dwell on this, but what's the most important thing you think you should be doing as a student teacher? Once you're student teaching, what do you think you should be doing? Anybody? I mentioned some of it. Anybody want to throw something out that's about the student teach? How many student teach in January? Okay, oh, wow. So what do you think you should do right now to prepare for student teaching? Do you know who your cooperating teachers are yet? Probably not, do you? But do you know where you're student teaching, right? Oh, you don't. Okay, got it. So what do you think you should be doing now, though, to prep for student teaching? Any ideas? Well, learning. You've learned all the theory. You ask a lot of questions. Your professors that you have are the best in the business. They know. Yes. Research certain districts. If you've selected, I don't know, if you turn in 3 or 4 districts, find out as much as you can about those 3 or 4 districts. Talk to those districts to see if, based on your schedule, you can actually go out and visit those districts. and see what's going on and interview the principals and touch base with them. The more you can do now, the better it's going to be. Okay, so as a student teacher, critical things: ask to visit other classrooms. No matter where you're at, get out into those other classrooms and take a look at what they're doing. And if I'm teaching, let's say, English or third grade, is that all I should be focused on? No. If I'm teaching English, I should be going into math classes or science classes if I'm at the secondary level. If I'm teaching third grade, I want to go into second grade classes, right? I want to go into fourth grade classes. Get out as much as you can. And the thing that's awesome about the way your program's set up, I believe you all do a co-teach model. So you'll be in there from the very beginning, not being a passive observer, but actually being in the system and being integrated in it. Experience everything. And the most important thing that I want to say, and then we're going to get a little bit more interactive and I'll get you involved, is understand that sometimes the best student teaching experiences are when everything goes wrong. And I was up in Iowa. I was at Coe College, I was doing some work with the University of Iowa and Iowa State, and in the middle I was at this little college called Coe College. It's right in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And they had a student teaching meeting on Wednesday night. I went in and Dr. Terry McNabb had her student teachers. They were in this horseshoe small school, and they started each Wednesday night seminar with how their week went from last Wednesday to this Wednesday. And one person got up, one girl got up, and she started tearing up a little bit. And she said, "My week's been horrible." She said, it really got worse today. My cooperating teacher didn't show up. She was a band teacher. My cooperating teacher didn't show up. They didn't find a sub. Kids came in this morning to my classroom flicking each other's hats. And pretty soon they got into a fight. I went next door to get another teacher because those two kids were fighting. I came back and there were two more fights, so there's 3 fights. It's an all-out war in class, and she's bawling as she's telling us this, right? And it's an all-out battle royal in there, and my day just never recovered, and I just don't know if I want to do this anymore. And then the next guy said, "Well, I almost got into a fight with a parent on Monday. Friday was senior skip day. They found out on Monday that if they skipped, they would get zeros, right? So the dad came in Monday afternoon and was trying to get us to switch the policy and not give him zeros. And I basically said to the dad, I said, "Well, you shouldn't have let him skip. It's really your fault." And then the dad started swearing. They got into this big argument, and it went downhill from there. The third girl said, "We had this big fight today, blah, blah, blah." It went in this bad. It wasn't good, right? She almost got ran over by a vehicle, and Terry's there, Dr. McNabb is there, and she's like looking at me like, "Oh my God, this is like the worst. So we don't want you to hear all this bad stuff, right? Cedar Rapids, Iowa, all this is going on." And I said that, and she was almost embarrassed, and she apologized. I said, "That's amazing. Like, how much better could this be for them?" And they looked at me like, and I can't, like, what the hell is he talking about? Why is this amazing? It was amazing because here's the amazing part. When I went back to the young lady in band, I said, "Tell me what you learned from today. Just from today, what did you learn?" And she said, if you could do today all over again, what did you learn? And she thought about it for a moment. She said, "Well, if I was at my door instead of being at my computer at my desk, I would have told them to stop flicking each other's bills. They were just, the brim of the hat. And I would have not let him do that, and then they would have sat down and never would have had that fight." I said, "That's good, right?" So now, no matter how busy you are, like, you need to be at your door greeting your kids, keeping the stuff on the outside, keeping what's on the inside on the inside. And then I said, "What else?" She said, "Well, I learned that there's this little black button over by the door that if I push this black button, they'll go to the office and they'll send somebody immediately down. And then I wouldn't have left the room and had 2 other fights when I came back to, right?" And then I went to the young man and I said, "Tell me what you learned." And he said, "Well, I'm just sitting here thinking about what I learned." And he said, what I should have done was when that parent came up, it's not my fault the administration gives them zeros. You know, that's the school policy. What I should have done is I should have thanked the dad for being an involved and concerned parent and say, hey, I appreciate you coming up. I appreciate you being involved. This is something that you really need to talk to the administration about, and really not me, because I'm just enforcing the policy, right? So when you're having those very bad days and you feel like crying or you are crying, think about, what did I learn today that I will do differently the next time that situation happens? And it will happen. You know, you can be as proactive, and that's what we want you to be, as possible. But when you have to be reactive, you need to be good at that too. So learn from those days and chalk up those days and be thankful for those bad days, because those bad days are going to allow you to have so many more great days in the future because of what you've learned, if you've learned from it. Other things that are critical about student teaching, and notice that's the bold part, right? Work on the skill of building relationships, because that's not easy for all people, right? Some of you are just natural relationship builders. Everybody you meet's a friend, right? And you know everybody, and everybody may know you, but some of you, I would venture to say, probably aren't the best at doing that. And that's where you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And building those relationships with kids starts the second you start student teaching. So what I want you to do right now for just about a minute, and how long is a minute for teachers, really? How long is a teacher minute in reality? It's about 30 seconds, right? So everything is always like you say, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then in 3 minutes you got to be done. And then you go, what the hell? What's going on? There's that sense of urgency. So a minute, right? How do you build relationships with your kids? Talk with the people around you. How do you work on building relationships with your kids? And the reason why this is so important, if you don't get anything else out of this today, nothing else that you've done matters if you can't do this part. Build a relationship with kids. So talk about it amongst your friends.
Probably not, because we were having issues with the audio. That's why I was trying to figure out how to. Okay.
All right, bring this crew back in and you share it up. Come on up.
Okay, howdy. So our group, we talked about in building relationships, kind of just like making a personal connection with the kid and making sure that you're having one-on-one time with them, but then also offering opportunities for them to like express themselves to you. So doing like writing prompts where they can talk about who they are, where they come from, and then trying to find a connecting point with them through that.
Good job. No pressure. I'm just randomly grabbing you.
Hi, my name's Megan. Our group talked about, well, we have this idea that on the first day of school you can introduce yourself, and just like any other teacher, they normally have a PowerPoint and show them your personal life, and then you can always give them a sheet of like, get to know me, and you can always keep that on file just to have them, and then throughout the year you make connections. And I know that last semester my teacher would have a sit down every morning for about 5 minutes, and the kids would raise their hand and they'd be like, tell me something new about today. And so the kids would share like something that happened last night or what they're going to do after school today. And so just little activities to get them involved and included and get to know them. Yeah.
Awesome. Good job. Hey. All right, one more person. So I voluntold 2 people. Who wants to volunteer? I know somebody else. Okay. Yeah, I want you to come up. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Okay, so we talked about being vulnerable with your students about what's going on in your life. And also, I believe that like just being willing to say I'm sorry and making it a learning experience for yourself as well. And just being vulnerable with your students and saying like, this is a learning experience for me as well. And I'm learning alongside you guys and I'm going to make mistakes because I'm not perfect. And just being willing to apologize when you do make a mistake. I think that's huge for me just as a person when someone like apologizes, especially an adult, like because we're all people and we're all learning in it together. So.
Some other things, and I know that were probably mentioned in that group, is you can learn a lot about kids by just listening, hearing them in the hallways, their conversations, sitting with them and eating with them at lunches, going in and eating with them at breakfast. If you don't have duty that morning, just sitting with kids and being a presence to them. I found our best teachers, they were there at the bus, welcoming all kids in. They were there at the car rider line in the morning, welcoming kids in. They did those things that were above and beyond. And here's the thing that we'll talk about in just a second that's really, really important is if you really want to build these relationships, this is key, being proactive. And the part about being proactive is like was mentioned in here is letting them know who you are, the appropriate stuff, and understanding that you have to love the kids you don't like, okay? If you don't listen to anything else I say today, like love the kids you don't like. Because if you don't like them, what do you think the other teachers probably don't think as well? They probably don't like them either, right? The kids that come in with their backpacks filled up, all their supplies and materials, when they have a question, they raise their hand. When you have a question, they answer it. Those kids are okay, right? It's easy to like and love those kids. But if you love the kids you don't like, and they know it, and you do that by doing a couple things, right? You do that by no matter how bad yesterday was, the next time you see them, you act like they just got back from deployment. They'll think, what the hell, this person's the craziest person. They just, they were just on me yesterday, right? And now they haven't seen me forever, right? You see them in the hallway. You don't hold, this is not a relationship with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, where you can hold a grudge. Those kids, you cannot hold grudges with. And it throws them, it throws them for a loop when something happens and you totally, inside you might be, oh man, this is the hardest thing. Hey, how are you doing? This is so hard right now, but I just really missed you. That's hard for them. But they don't know that, right? And eventually, here's what happens by loving the kids you don't like. And I'll give you an example. If you're driving down the road here and somebody cuts in front of you and almost causes you an accident, and you look over and you have no idea who the person is, what may you do? Well, I know what you may do. So you don't have to tell me that here. But if they do the same exact thing and you look over and it's one of your friends, are you going to do the same thing? Yeah. You may. Or you may give them that smile and wave. By loving the kids you don't like, every day you do that, you make it harder and harder and harder on them to not be good for you. Right? It's hard for people not to be good to people that care for them. It's hard for kids. If you love them regardless of who they are and where they come from, you eventually over time make it impossible for them not to be good for you. You do, just because they know you care about them. And they have a tough time showing you that. And they may not tell you that in front of a big audience, but they appreciate that you care about them. And you care about them and you love them not by lowering your expectations, not by modifying and making their assignments easier, but by knowing how they learn, understanding where they come from and leveraging those cultural assets, planning very purposefully, and working relentlessly, and always letting them know, especially on the front side, initially, quietly, individually, that you do care for them and you're glad that you see them. There's a book that's fairly popular that's pretty good. I think it's good that no matter where you teach, I think you can learn something from it. And I learned a lot from For White Folks That Teach in the Hood. I don't know if you're familiar with that book at all, but it talks a lot about leveraging cultural assets. And you can really use that regardless of where you teach, because everybody has cultural assets that you could leverage. Another thing that's really, really important is, as a student teacher, to be proactive. And so as a student teacher, where do you think you should be before your class starts? And I know you know this because you heard this in class, but where do you think you should be? At the door, right? Inside the door or right outside the door? Right outside the door. And I'm going to tell you why that's so important is because if this is our classroom and I'm inside the door, I let whatever problems happened out there, I let them in our classroom, right? And I let the kids know that I'm happy to see them. I mean, they know that we're going to work hard that day. Everything is a state of emergency, right? It's a 911 environment every single day in that classroom. Like the world will end if we got so much to get through today, right? And the world's going to end if we don't get through it every single day. So they know it's an ER environment in that classroom. But if I'm outside that classroom and I'm walking down the hallway and I need somebody who wants to volunteer to look, come on, okay. So she's walking down the hallway and so we're going to do it so you all can see her. So that's the hallway. And she's just had an issue either at home or with one of her friends. And she's not very happy. And so I'm outside. This is our classroom. And she's walking. She's mad. And if I let her walk in the class, if I let her walk in, walk in, then what has she done once she's in the classroom? What have we all sensed? We've sensed it, right? Awesome. Okay, now do that again. So I'm being proactive, and why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? I know I'm a good singer, right? So no matter how mad she is, right, I didn't say what's wrong, because when I say what's wrong, right, do you see what's going to happen? I'm going to have to, I'm going to bring that up and I'm going to reinforce that. But I changed that thought by doing something that throws her off, like, oh, what happened? Like, oh my God, McKenna's nuts. He can't sing. He's out of tune. I'm mad at somebody else, but I'm going to break down laughing, right? And so then what I do is I don't want to bring it up right now, right? I want to change that. And I said, hey, no matter what's going on, we're going to go in here and we're going to make it better. I changed that mindset. And then at some point, though, I want to circle back and I want to say at some point, hey, you okay? Because I care enough about you that I don't want you being mad here. And I have to trigger that out in the hallway. And I have to make sure that I don't let it in there. And once we've changed that mindset, then you could go into class and you could think about learning, right? And learning, we don't want it to be hard work. We want learning to be fun and relevant and engaging because we planned for that. And we've built up the stamina in our kids so that they're learning and they don't even realize they're learning. The heavy lifting about your jobs as a student teacher and a teacher will be when? The planning part. You're going to do all your hard work on that side so that when you get this chance to be in front of the kids and work with the kids, that's the fun part and the easiest part. All right, give her a hand. You're awesome. She had me convinced. I started getting a little nervous. Like, the other thing about being proactive is understanding what really good teaching means and building the relationship with the kids before you start the instruction. You got to do this as a student teacher. We all learn it's, all these positive reinforcement things are good, right? It's good to, but I'm going to tell you in a lot of environments, I'm not a big fan of public accolades. I'm really not. And I know some of you are like kind of, oh no, what's he talking about? Like, oh, don't say your kids are doing a good job. So can I get your name? Sarah. So if Sarah is really, really participating in class and it's the first couple weeks in class, right? And she's answering questions and she's being a great student. And I say, Sarah, you are phenomenal. You're awesome. You're doing a great job. I really appreciate you. What is everybody else in the class going to do? Yeah, yeah. You're going to bring an apple tomorrow, Sarah, teacher's pet. So when she starts getting the negative peer pressure for being a good student, what's going to happen with Sarah? She's going to slack off. So what I'm going to do for Sarah is I think she's awesome. Y'all, I don't care if you know she's awesome or not. I need her to know. So in passing, in the hallway, in the cafeteria, whenever I see her, I'm like, Sarah, you're a rock star. Keep up the good work. Only she needs to hear that right then. Right? I want to reinforce with her that she's a beast and she's amazing and I love her. But I don't need everybody else to know that right now because I need her to keep doing what she's doing, right? And then, ladies, can I get your two names? Courtney? Courtney and Summer? Summon. Courtney and Summon. Okay. Well, Courtney and Summon aren't participating at all in class, right? And I could sit and say, and I could use all the wait time in the world. If people don't know it, wait time isn't going to help you. As a teacher, you know if you should wait because you could see they're formulating an answer. You can wait all year if you want. If they don't know it, they don't know it, right? So Courtney and Summon aren't really participating. So I could tell them in front of class, I call them and do this or that. But how cool would it be if I was proactive and I went to each one of them individually on Wednesday and I said to Courtney, I said, Summon, tomorrow I need you to participate in class. And so I'm going to constantly be assessing. And when I ask something and you know the answer, I want you to give me a signal, right? Just somehow let me know you know the answer, right? This is Wednesday and that's tomorrow because I need you to be an active participant in class. So we're in groups, we're moving, we're transitioning, and then I want to do some assessments. And I'm always listening, I'm constantly assessing and adjusting as I'm monitoring. And I ask a question. And I see that Courtney gives me the signal, right? Whether it's a tug on the ear, or I look in the eyes, like I know that answer. I'll look around, Courtney. And Courtney answers the question, right? I know, she knows, I know, like we know she knows the answer. And so I call on her, she answers. I don't make a big deal out of it. I just move on, right? Making a big deal, like kids should know the answers. And that's the awesome thing about teaching is as long as one kid knows the answer, you've won. Because once they've given that answer, guess what? Everybody knows. They all know the answer. It's not like shooting a basketball game where one player makes the shot, then they all automatically are going to make it. You know, that's different. In a classroom, if you give the answers to one kid and it's relevant to them and there's a connection, like they all know it. So Courtney's given the answer. So I told her this on Wednesday for Thursday. What do you think's going to happen on Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when Courtney knows the answers, someone knows the answers? What do you think when they know the answers I'm going to get? Am I going to get these flailing arms or what am I going to get from them when they know the answers? I'm going to get the signal. So I'm in class, and if I've done this strategically, I've set everybody up there for success, and nobody knows I've talked to anybody else and said, hey, when you know the answer, you don't have to flail your arm all around and be the teacher's pet. You just have to let me know. So if I'm seeing a lot of signals, I'm like, yes, everybody's got this. Now, who am I going to call on, right? Because I've set them up to be successful in that classroom, and I've allowed them to participate and be an active and engaged learner in that classroom when they know something. Does that make sense? Eventually, when I've built that relationship where this is a safe learning environment, then I could jump on this chair and sing praises to Sarah in front of everybody, right? But I've had to build that trust with them to get to that point. And that doesn't happen in the first week or two. So you've got to strategically give out those positive reinforcements. And sometimes it's just like a thumbs up when nobody else is looking. You know, a high five. It's just like, this is what we need to do. And so being proactive is really about planning purposely, working relentlessly, but it's about building those relationships, knowing the kids and works best for them, and leveraging those cultural assets so that they can be successful in your classroom. Does that make sense? Okay. We talked about this, but I want you to hear this again, right? Because if you don't hear anything else I've said today, like the theory that you've all learned the science of teaching. Student teaching is about putting that theory and coupling it with the art of teaching. The art of teaching. And I'll give you an example of that real quick, okay? How cool would it be if, so when you're thinking about science of teaching, right? How cool it would, and let me give you an art of teaching. So the science part is you come into a classroom and what's the first thing kids, you meet them at the door, you do all the things right. What's the first thing you have kids do before you start the lesson? Scientifically, what is it? What's that thing you call a warm-up? Or I didn't say that. What's that first thing you do? The bell ringer, the warm-up, the focus, whatever, right? You have them do that. And then after they do that, then what's the next thing? Then the lesson, and then what's the thing right before they leave to do later? Homework, right? Well, how cool would this be? Imagine instead of doing just the science part of teaching, let me use an example. When you go out like for your birthday or for a special occasion and you go to a restaurant, right? What's the first thing you do when you get to the restaurant after you've ordered your drinks? Generally, what will you order before your main entree? Appetizer, right? And then at that restaurant, when they come and say, like, okay, the three of you, pick your meal, what do you want? You want salad and what's your main course? If you pick anything right now. Just enchiladas, okay, that's good, I'm hungry now. Huh? Steak? Okay, so 2 out of 3 are enchiladas, right? 1 steak. And then if it's a great meal and it's a celebration, what do you have at the end? Dessert, right? A typical classroom, you come in, you do your warm-up, and everybody does the warm-up, right? Then you get your main course, which is your lesson, and then you do your homework. How cool would it be if in your classroom you knew kids enough where when they walked into the room and you met them at the door and gave them a high five and welcomed them like you'd never seen them, they go and there's a area on the wall where there's appetizers. 2 or 3 different appetizers that they could choose from. All equally active, all equally engaging, all covering the same critical concepts. They're just different. Some of those appetizers may be done with friends or in a group. Some may be done in isolation over on the beanbag. Some might be hands-on. They all have the opportunity to conquer the same thing. They're just different. Kids can come in and they could take an appetizer, taste it for a little bit. If they don't like how it tastes or if they're done early, what do? Get another appetizer. I don't care what appetizer you choose. I just need you to eat it, right? So they get their appetizer, which is just a different way of differentiating instruction instead of warming up. Hey, grab your appetizer because you're the chef of your kitchen and your restaurant, right? So then it's time to do the lesson. Now, if we just made enchiladas, 2 out of the 3 people would be happy, but our steak lover wouldn't be, right? So if we had just enchiladas now, that's all you could eat for the main course, how many of you would not be that satisfied and would rather have something else? Just raise your hand if you'd rather have something else besides enchiladas. Raise your hand nice and high. Okay, so a good chunk of you, at least half of you. Don't serve just enchiladas, because you're going to have people that aren't really big enchilada fans every classroom. So how cool would it be as the chef of your classroom to have maybe some of the same main course, but have some different side dishes, all equally active, all equally engaging, all covering the same critical concepts. They're just different. How cool would that be, right? And then your kids are eating what they need to eat. So then in the time of our lesson, instead of saying, okay, it's time for your homework, or some people use the fancy word home opportunity. It's all the same thing to kids. Okay, yeah, we're going to do my home opportunity. Okay, my homework. So when you go to a restaurant, when do you eat dessert? At the restaurant. And if you don't finish it, what can you do? You could take it home. How cool would it be for you as the owner of your restaurant to allow your kids to start eating their dessert there in your kitchen? And then if it's not edible, the dessert's all equally active, all equal engaging, 2 or 3 things, just different, all covering the same critical concepts, just built for their taste, that they could eat then, and if it's done, that's awesome. If it's not, they'll have eaten some of it at school so that when they go home, they could finish it. So many times the bell's ringing and the teachers say, here's your homework. And kids go home to an environment where there's not a chef to tweak the ingredients. There's not somebody that knows how to cook. There may not be anybody at all in the kitchen. And then we then are disappointed when they don't bring, when they don't clean their plate. And that's what I want you all to think about is how can you develop and design your classroom? And that starts when you're student teaching. Like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get comfortable doing those things that will allow you to be successful so that when you're the chef of your own restaurant, you'll have had an opportunity to practice cooking. And that is what student teaching is all about, is this sprint of 7 days, 14 to 16 hours a day, Monday through Sunday, that you learn your craft so that whenever you do get your job, you're going to be awesome. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes, right? That doesn't mean you can't get better. But I'll tell you, your job and your career will be a lot easier by really leveraging the student teaching and learning the art of teaching. It's impossible really in a classroom, for your professors to teach you the art of teaching. They could talk about it, but who's going to teach you the art of teaching? Y'all are. You're going to learn the art of teaching. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the next phase. Once you're student teaching, you're eventually going to have to be interviewed, right? I'm going to tell you this, the better job, the harder you work as a student teacher, what do you think is going to happen as far as the interview? Harder or easier? It's going to be a lot easier. Regardless of whether the process, regardless of what that looks like. There's different types of interviews out there, and we're going to practice a couple of them today. There's the generic district interview where, for example, my team would talk about being in HISD. They'd ask you questions just, do we feel like you'd be a fit in HISD, right? Then there's the campus interview, and that's specifically for being in room 103 teaching 3rd grade, right? And that's different. And then there's the panel interview, and more places will have this panel interview where you're with your peers. There may be an administrator in there, but it's generally the next layer, and they might ask you to present a mock lesson, right? Well, that's going to be easy for you because what have you guys done? You've done a whole semester's worth of lessons, and we're going to talk about how to prep those best lessons so that you can pull those off in a 10 or 15-minute exhibition. The application. Just like these 18 mistakes that I've got integrated in here, you want another set of eyes on your application. The application is where you put everything into place, and that's the most important part really beyond the resume and beyond the interview is where people are going to find you and look for you. So your online application. If I'm going to a job fair, and we'll talk about that before we leave, and I know there's 4 or 5 districts that I really, really want to be employed at, when should I fill out their online applications? After the job fair? No, I want to do it before the job fair because guess what they can do right at the job fair is pull you up and then forward your application to certain places that have opportunities in your area. These take some time, and what I would suggest is you start thinking about this now. Looking at applications of places you really think you want to go. You never would submit it, right? But you can take and copy the question down in a Word document and start filling out how would I answer that question, the bang for your buck questions, because a lot of applications are very similar. Then before you actually hit submit, you would have student taught some, so I guarantee you that that answer will change over time. And then you just copy and paste it and dump it in the different online applications as you proceed on your job hunt. Be honest, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And the reason you want to be honest is because you don't want to get hired as somebody else, right? Because you'll get fired as yourself. You want to, if they ask you a question, you want to answer honestly, what would you do? If I walked into your classroom on any given day, typically what would you be doing and what would the kids be doing? You want to be honest about that because they're going to expect that what you tell them they're going to see in the classroom, okay? So application. The art in what they're going to really be talking about, the questions are going to be about planning and prep. So you should be pretty comfortable there. Classroom environment, that's about building the connections, about being proactive, having systems in place. How much cooler would it be to talk about the positive things that happen in a classroom than saying, well, I have these list of rules, right? The lists of rules are the old things that were in place. The new things are systems so that I can allow kids to be successful. As far as classroom environment, start looking at the websites of where you want to apply and see what they do there. Do they do love and logic? Do they do conscious discipline? Do they do discipline with dignity? Do they do champs? What do they do in that school district so you can become familiar with those systems so that when you student teacher, when you apply for jobs, you'll understand that. The instruction and then professional responsibilities. I'm going to skip through a few of these. So this one right here, what do you think the most, and we're going to practice a little bit now in our last little bit of time that we have, because this is the most important thing I'm going to do today. If you don't get anything else out of what I'm sharing today, we're going to practice some things. So what do you think is the most common question asked at an interview? Share with your friends, just 15 seconds. The most, you know you're going to get asked this question. Okay, who has the answer? You all have the answer? Who has the answer? Who knows what the most common question? 99.9% of the time. And yes. Okay, that's a good question. That's going to be very common. And so in order to share this presentation, a while ago we wrote a book. We sent out surveys across the United States. What questions do you ask? What are you listening for, and what do you want to hear, right? So we got 403 of these surveys back. What questions do you ask? What are you listening for, and what do you want to hear? That's one of them. There's one that's almost asked 99% of the time. Somebody else. Why do you want to teach at this school, or why do you want to be a teacher, right? So what questions do you ask? What are you hearing, and what do you want to hear? So almost 100% of the time, not quite 100% of the time, but close, a question is asked at some level of the interview process, why do you want to be a teacher, right? 95% of the time, it's the same answer. And what do you think that answer is? Sure, I love kids. 100% of the time that question's asked, 95% of the time, I love kids, right? Well, pedophiles love kids, but, so probably not the best answer. So I'm going to give you an assignment, right? I'm going to give you a few of them that you can choose to do if you want to. What I would do right now if I were where you're at, does anybody have one of those cool little journals that I use? So something like this. So I would put 3 sections on something like this, right? And I would put the first section is, why do I want to be a teacher, right? And I would start putting in bullets in that right now. Why I want to be a teacher. Then throughout this semester and the next semester, every time I'm in a class or student teaching and there's a reason I want to be a teacher, what would I put in that section? The reason, right? So that before I go on an interview and I know I'm going to be asked that question, I've spent almost a year figuring out why I really want to do this, and I could articulate that. And I could be one of the 5% when I ask why I want to be a teacher that actually has an unbelievable reason of why I want to do it. And even more so, how cool would it be if that's in my portfolio and I get asked why I want to be a teacher and I could say, well, that's an amazing question. So my last year, I wrote that question down, and here are some of the reasons. And while you're looking at that, let me tell you some of the most important reasons. Do you see how you've already taken that interview and owned it and controlled it? Because you've been reflective and you've thought about why I really want to be a teacher, right? So that's part one of your assignment, okay? Why I want to be a teacher. It's more than loving kids. And loving kids is important. And you should love kids in the kid business. But we're going to take it for granted that you do, because that's just what educators do. Okay, so we're going to do a practice question right now. We're going to do an interview, and let me move to it, for your time to practice. And the question is, how do you integrate available technology into your teaching, right? Whatever's available as you student, teacher, teach, how do you incorporate that into your teaching? So that's going to be the first practice question. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to find somebody you don't know, okay? Find somebody you don't know. Introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Jeff McKenna. I'm Officer of Human Capital in HISD, and I'm a physics major. I honestly don't know how to spell physics, but it sounds really cool. I'm not. I wish I was. But introduce yourself, and then they'll introduce themselves, and stand up and just practice this question where you each take a few minutes to answer it, okay? So find somebody you don't know. How do you integrate it? And then if you're going to be the first one, I would say, how do you integrate technology into your classroom instruction? Listen to their answer, then they'll do the same thing to me, okay? Find somebody you don't know, introduce yourselves, and then this is the first question. Go ahead and go. Oh, you're interviewing? Oh, I'm so sorry.
You can go out the door.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Oh, that's really good. Oh, are you interviewing? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Okay, wherever you're at, grab a seat real quick. Don't move too far. Just hang out for just a second. I'm going to get my trusty gum because I'm drinking coffee. You don't want to have bad breath at the interview, right? I'm modeling. You don't want to be chomping on a big piece of gum either. So we're gonna take this to the next level, and I practiced on a few people already. So when you go to a job fair, right, where your first experience probably will be at, do you think you get to sit in these nice soft chairs? No. Is it going to be as loud as a job fair as it is in here? Yeah, louder, right? Are people going to come up on you and interrupt you? Absolutely. So you guys, who are you interviewing with? Okay, guys, get up there and practice, right? Get back up like you were. So here's what I want. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So they're interviewing. I come up and like, hey, do you all know where a restroom is around here? Well, they stop and they're going to politely tell me, right? Some other people I asked where if another school district was here. Some people I said, well, oh, that's a really good question. So in that interviewing session, you're going to have people like almost right on top of you, like, you know, waiting, trying to listen to the questions so they could steal good answers. You have to understand this is our time to practice tuning all of that out. The other thing is some of you, and this is our time to learn. Let's see. Let me get some people I haven't talked to. You two. So you've, let's see. Will you stand up for me? You two? Will you stand up for me? So come on up for just a second. Here's what I saw, and this was good. And I'm not saying these two did it. I'm just using them as an example. Some people had their hands in their pockets, right? Or they were teeter-tottering around. Some people had their arms, what's the natural thing? Crossed, right? And some people look like they were like in a karate movie. You know, their hands are flailing all around. When you're at a job fair, the hardest thing to do is figure out how can I use my facial expressions in my hands to effectively communicate what I need to communicate. And that isn't by crossing my arms or flailing them all around, right? You have to practice. Practice makes what? It really doesn't. Practice makes permanent. Perfect practice. So y'all, when you're practicing, videotape yourself. Get with people. Like, there should be no reason you're not rock star interviewers at a job fair between now and then, because you have the opportunity to practice. Google questions, right? Put yourself up there and like, how am I going to answer that question if I'm on videotape? And do my arms look like I'm flailing? Am I rocking around, much? Am I leaning on something? And that's what we're going to practice the next couple questions is. I'm going to get in your space. I might bump into you nicely. I might ask you questions. So just practice and then be mindful of where your arms are at, okay? So here's what we're going to do. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And then the other thing is some people were looking where? Like if I'm interviewing Sarah, some people, even though they're interviewing with Sarah, I might be looking beyond Sarah. So you want to practice, like, what is appropriate eye contact, right? What's the appropriate length of time? Because I don't want to be answering a question and just like the whole time, like just staring at you. It gets really, even me practicing gets uncomfortable, right? So you got to figure out what's that good amount of time where I'm looking at, thank you all, where I'm looking at somebody, but I'm not really making them uncomfortable. And if they say, tell me a little bit about yourself, it doesn't mean from the time you were born, like, well, I was born in, Houston at Bentob, and then, I was taken home in a stroller, and then I went to get, they really mean, tell me a little bit about yourself now, right? I'm currently student teaching at this campus, that kind of thing. I went into education. A little bit about yourself. And generally, what's going to control the length of time of your response? How interested they are. If you see that you start losing them, then you need to cut it off. So you have to think, I formulated that response in my mind, and then in 60 to 90 seconds at the most, I'm going to give them a good answer. And if they want me to extend it, then I'll get that sense, or they might ask for more, right? So the great thing about being really good at student teaching is that no matter what questions they ask you, if it's been a sprint for you, it's going to be easy. The hardest part is trying to take all of that you've learned in one semester, encapsulate it in 90 seconds each question, right? But we're going to practice doing that. So we're going to, remember I asked, what questions are you asking? What are you hearing, and what do you want to hear? I'm going to ask you some common questions. I'm going to tell you what most people say they want to hear. So our assignment right now is going to be find somebody else you don't know, right? Because you want to practice this, and people are uncomfortable shaking hands and making eye contact. Tell that person a little bit about yourself, right? I'm from so-and-so, just a little bit, like about 15 seconds each. Decide who's going to be the person that is going to, because we're going to do two questions. One question is going to be you being asked the question, and then the next question is going to be different, and you answering the question, right? So whoever's going to answer the first question, I don't want them to see the question, right? So decide who's going to answer the first question. The second question is going to be different. Then we're going to go and debrief. Does that make sense? So I'll cut you off in about 90 seconds. I'm going to flick a light. And when I flick a light, I hope I don't totally black this place out. But if I do, that means, okay, stop wherever you're at. And then then I'm going to ask the next question. And then while I'm doing that, you guys just want to rotate so that if I just got done asking a question, I won't see the screen. Anybody need any clarification on that? Find somebody you don't know, find somebody you want to get to know. There's only a few. And then find them, and then we'll start. But you got to stand up this time and move around. Flick the light. Will you flick the light? No. Yeah, flick the light. Okay. Is the light switch right? All right. Right. Look. Okay. So you guys did a good job. I like the smiles. I like how you look. Remember your arms. Okay. Remember your arms. I know you want to cut them off, but just keep them on there. Okay. So here's the question. Make sure you can't see it. Tell me about yourself and your student teaching experiences. Now, you haven't student taught yet, right? But this is one of the most common questions that you're going to get. So I want you to do the best that you can, knowing what we've talked about you're going to do, right? I want you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I want you to think about how you answer this question now and then compare it to when you're done. So tell me about your student teaching experiences. Okay, and you really could pull in, you guys have all been out to classrooms by now, right? Right? So even though that's not been a student teaching experience, you've worked with kids. So that's what I want you to always think about is working with kids. Remember when I asked you that question, if I were to walk into your classroom, and this is one of the most common questions, what would you be doing? And I emphasize you, and what would the kids be doing? If I were to walk into your classroom on any given day, what would you be doing and what would your kids be doing? Who do you think I want you to tell me about first? The kids. I emphasize you, but in a teacher, we always got to talk about kids first, right? And I know right away if I say, tell me about, if I walked into your classroom, what would you be doing on any given day and what would your kids be doing? I know I've got somebody solid when they say, well, if you walked into my classroom, typically the kids, and then they'll talk about that, right? So think about kids, talk about kids now. And then I'm going to get your attention again. I know you're going to be busy, but when you flick the lights, that's going to be the time is up. And then we're going to flip around and do the next question. Okay, so let me get my trusty little stopwatch. Okay, go ahead and go. Hey, you're in my one. Oh, you're interviewing? I am so sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Can you go out with that kid named Mark? You're interviewing? I am so sorry. Hey, are you doing other interviews? Oh, you're interviewing? I'm sorry. You go out with Mike. Oh, you're interviewing? Oh, I thought you were Mike's girlfriend. I'm so sorry. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. You're doing really good. Are you going to ask the same questions to all? Oh, you're interviewing. I'm so sorry. Keep going. I'm so sorry. Good job. Do you go out with Dave? You look like. Are you in my dorm? Were you in my dorm freshman year?
I'm not sure, sir.
Oh, you're interviewing? I'm so sorry. I apologize. Are you guys doing interviews later?
Yeah, later.
Okay.
They don't have
Hey, we've freshman year we were in the same dorms like this.
Oh,
You're interviewing?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Sorry. Do you still go out with Dave? Oh, you're interviewing right now? Sorry about that. I didn't know you were interviewing. Good luck on your job. Excuse me. Okay, flip around, and here's the next question. Tell me about a lesson that went really well, and how did you come up with that idea? Tell me about a lesson that went really, really well, and how did you come up with that idea? Go. Hey, were we in the same dorms together freshman year? Oh, you're interviewing? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. That is, I love that answer. Are you still dating that Mike, whatever, or am I confusing with somebody else? No, okay, sorry. Okay. Oh, you're interviewing? I'm sorry. No, it's okay. Okay. Are you guys interviewing all day, or is this just? Are you interviewing right now? I'm so sorry. So sorry. I'm so sorry. Keep up. You're doing really, really good. Are you doing interviews right now? Are you interviewing all day? Sorry, can I sign up for an interview too? Yeah. Good job, you're doing really good. Good luck. I want to teach her too. Like my son was this woman. He really likes it. Okay, go ahead and grab a seat. Find your spot. Okay. All right, you can come on up. Yeah, you got your name badge on, ready to go. All right, tell me about challenges you guys had.
Okay, well, one of the main challenges was we were very bad with talking with our hands, and so that was just kind of a mental thing that we had to keep in check. But also for myself personally, one of the main challenges was when you gave us the question, just having to sit there and want to plan out and think about what I want to say and what lesson I want to talk about or how I'm going to respond to it, and not having time to really take time to plan out what I want to say and just have to come up with something right there. And like you said, take an entire semester of experiences and put it into a 90-second period so quick. It's just kind of, it was just a lot of pressure on yourself. But yeah.
Good job. Yay, give her a round of applause. All right. So nobody wanted to make eye contact with me. I promise you that Mike was walking around. He's like, no, I'm good. Go ahead.
For us, I think it was more of like when we got the question, we like said what we wanted to say, but then once we said it, we're just kind of hanging out. And so I think that was the kind of the challenge that we had. So a little bit about us was we were just, we presented our idea where she was talking about for the second question where they were doing STAR prep, and it was pretty good. And then I kind of gave her a follow-up question. We got there, and I was like, that's great. And then it was kind of over. And so then we just talked about shooting things out of our belly button. And so that was it.
Awesome. A round of applause. So we're gonna listen to Listen Force, but it's not easy, you all. At a job fair, here's the cool thing about job fairs is if you can interview with people all over you, and I know people who I was asking crazy questions, and people, you really did a good job. I got to give you props. You handled that really well. I asked a variety of different things, and people kept moving forward, and nobody looked at me like you're totally insane, even though I could see that they thought that. So let's take a look at the first question. Tell me about yourself and your student teaching experiences. So 403 surveys. Here's what most people said they wanted to hear. Tell me about yourself and your teaching experience. All about the kiddos, right? All about getting the kids to move academically and socially from wherever they were at to wherever they were, right? So focus on kids. Talk about volunteering experiences because all of you will have student taught, right? You don't get an exception for that. Like just saying I student taught is not really that big a deal because you all have to do it. What they want to see, remember I said this is the sprint? How cool is it going to be when you talk about the things you did beyond the day to work with kids? I went in, I worked tutorials in the afternoon with fifth graders. I was a third grade teacher. I did tutorials in the afternoon or extended day or Saturday school with first graders, and I was a fourth grade teacher. I went and I volunteered for the clubs and the organizations that they have at that school. Volunteering not only looks good, it is good, right? It gives you exposure to people that you didn't have exposure to kids that you may eventually teach someday, to parents, to the community, and to the leadership team, because at all these events, there's an administrator that at least is doing a drive-by. It allows you to develop relationships with peers. It doesn't matter how good you are as an individual. Schools are judged on the team effort, right? You could have the best of everything in a school, but if it's only in isolation, and if you don't share it, and if you're in those PLCs not being successful, then you're not going to get hired because you're not a people person. They're going to really ask. They would rather have you coachable and trainable than just amazing and be somebody that does everything in isolation. And I want to give you a quick example of that because I want to move on. But I'm walking around one of our campuses. It was Burbank Middle School. Walking around Burbank Middle School with Amber Thompson. She's the director of student teaching at University of Houston. We're walking into a classroom, and we walk in, and there's a student teacher with a group of teachers in the PLC, right? And they are doing this amazing discussion and dialogue about their next lessons. And so Amber pulls out her student teacher to ask her how things are going on. And I asked the group, right? This is towards the end of the semester. I asked the group about the student teacher. And I said, how is she? And they said, to be honest with you, she's by far the best thing that we've ever had. And I said, this is at the end of the year. And I said, what do you mean? And she just came in January. Well, our PLCs, we were negative. They were honest. We were pretty negative. We didn't plan appropriately. Everybody, we came in here, we complained about a few things here or there when we really had nothing to complain about. And every day she came in with this positive attitude. And no matter what, she had this optimistic, bright side look. And instead of us bringing her down, she brought us up. And she made us a better at this, and they were all veterans. And she made us want to be better. And you're going to be in situations where you're going to put yourself around people that are negative, and you could choose to let them bring you down, or you could bring them up. And I guarantee you, if you don't let them bring you down, you're going to bring them up. And that's what she was able to do. And I went outside, I'm talking to her, and she walked with us, and she said, yeah, it was tough. For about 2 weeks, man, I knew. Like, I had to walk in there with my A game because they really didn't want to plan. They had excuses for doing this or that. And she said they were all amazing with their kids. Like, when she went to their classroom, they were phenomenal. Where they just weren't good as in the group. And she said, and I just decided I'm not going to let that determine, that hour be something I dread every single day. And now it's what they look forward to. See, you can do that as a student teacher, right? You can do that by having those great relationships with peers. Because she was able to do that, how soon do you think she was able to get a job? Within a month. Like, the principal saw that. And she was like, yes, I've already told her she's got a job. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to, get this person a job. Rosa Hernandez hired her, and she just had to get all of her credentials. Excitement and enthusiasm for the profession. It's important that you're motivated to be a change agent and a difference maker. So when you're asked that question, here are some of the key listen fors that those people want to hear. Tell me about a lesson that went really well, and how did you come up with the idea? It's the standards, right? So I came up with the standards. I understood that my kids were different, and I knew the kids. So I differentiated my instruction. I knew that there were going to be kids that get it, kind of get it, and don't get it, and I planned for it, right? The lesson that went really good, the heavy lifting was done on the front side based on how my kids learn and where they were at, and I knew where they needed to be. And then if you have a copy of this great lesson that's in your portfolio, then what I would do is even bring that out when that question's asked and say, even though it was good, here's what I would do better or do differently if I did something like this again. Informal assessment is critical. Nobody wants to hear about end-of-unit tests. I mean, we test way too much. You never really should ever have to give your kids a formal test to know where they're at. Because informally, you're constantly assessing them. How are you doing that? Just somebody throw it out. How are you informally assessing your kids? Yes. Yeah, and while they're talking, what are you doing? Listening, right? You're constantly listening. Man, you can hear a million things going on. What are other ways of informally assessing? So you're listening to their knowledge level, right? Constantly while they're in their flexible groups. What else? Asking questions individually or as a group, like, hey, tell me where we're at. Yes. Just watching them work. And also, you can see if somebody gets it, right? If you know your kids well enough, like, they get it. If somebody, like, looks away when you ask something, maybe they don't get it, right? And if the majority of your kids aren't getting it, is that their fault or yours? And it's not your fault, but whose responsibility is to fix it? It's yours, right? So, and then everything is about student-centered. So if I really get to know my kids, is it at the right level of rigor, and is it relevant? Because those two things are critical. A big mistake a lot of people make is they feel like their kids aren't that smart or because of where they come from, and they dumb things down. If our kids are in an environment where they're already behind, the last thing they need to do is for you to slow down the race. They need you to get them where they're at and have this sense of urgency by planning purposefully to get them to where they need to be. In these interviews, parental involvement, and that is purposefully the wrong word. And there's two other words that are better than parental involvement. And I put this up here because I want to focus on that, because a lot of times people think, well, that's good, parental involvement. Well, that means nothing. What are two better words that could be that would follow instead of involvement that we could use? Collaboration's good. Parental engagement is the next level higher, right? Parents are actually engaged. What's the next level where you really want to get beyond engagement? Starts with an E as well. E-M-P, empowerment. You want to empower your parents as a campus, right? You want to empower your parents to be part of what's going on at your campus. So getting parental involvement is the very minimal, and then engaging them in the right things. And I, will confess in front of you, I lie to my parents all the time. I would get them up to be involved, and I would bribe their kids to get them there, and I would put something together that said was for their kids. But when I was a building principal, I could care less about whether the parents help their kids at home, because I knew we were going to take care of it at school, right? I knew we would take care of it at school. What I needed is for our parents to be empowered and get better. So I would get them some form or fashion to get up to the school. We would have something that was kind of an involvement, kind of an engagement activity for the parents. But really the purpose there was at the very end. And I would basically say, I'd act like they were leaving. Oh, by the way, there's a table set up in the very back, and that table, and keep in mind, this was 2003 below, there's a CD back there that has information about doing mock interviews, right? There's information set up. There's a handout. If you have anybody you know that you want to get a GED, take that information. Right now, I'm saying anybody you know, but who did I want to really get a GED? Some of my parents. There's mock interviews that the community's doing, that our community partners are doing 2 Saturdays from now, that will help you design your resume. On that CD, there's sample resumes. So if you know anybody that's looking at designing a resume, take that sample CD and model it after that. There's also a handout there in case you don't have a computer. There's so-and-so with Lone Star, North Harris, whoever we could get up there, that has continuing education classes. Talk to them if you know anybody else. My whole goal was to get the parents, right, to get the parents educated. And if we could get the parents a better education, a GED, or getting them back to college, then we've done our part. When I was at Salmons Elementary, which fed into Eisenhower eventually, when I was in Aldine, we had 2 of our parents that couldn't speak English. One of them's a principal now, and one of them not only became a principal, but was featured on Good Morning America, and she has a school named after her. And they came in as parents not even really able to speak English. One of them we hired as a custodian, and the other we hired initially as a teacher aide. And we continued to work with them, got them GEDs, got them into college, and now one of them is a principal of a school. The other one was a principal of school and has a school named after her. They were never incapable of greatness. The only thing that kept them from being successful initially was language and lack of technology. Well, once we gave them that, then they own the world after that. Reading, how many of you are reading teachers? Just raise your hand. Okay, so everybody in here is a reading teacher. Okay, I will tell you that there's nobody. So every single one of you, no matter what you teach, science, math, you are reading teachers. Anything you can go to with reading and literacy and writing is critical. So you have this whole year and the rest of your life to say, when somebody asks you, what do you teach? Well, I teach reading. My assignment's science, but I'm really a reading teacher, right, and a writing teacher. So the more you know about literacy, it's critical. Start jumping in on as much training as you can. Once you find out where you're going to student teach, I will tell you I will be very shocked if those districts don't allow you, I'm breaking this thing, don't allow you to start attending their professional development right now, as early as you can. And if any of you are coming to HISD, I will get you in on our training as soon as you want to. You can start coming now if you want. Your training's going to really help you, and you never stop being a learner. Portfolios, evaluations, I'm going to go through some of this rather quickly. I do want to touch on this because one of the big things is people make mistakes, right? And sometimes you make a mistake, you can't go back and change it. In the state of Texas, if you've done anything up to this point, you're a human that's got caught, right? On your online application, it's going to ask you to disclose that. Make sure you're honest, because whatever you've done, no matter really what anybody tells you, it's going to show up. Even when they say there's really, they say expunged and they say all this, guess what shows up? Anything you've done. So you want to be honest. Now, the good thing is people make mistakes, and that's normal. You don't bring those up in an interview because your principal, APs, those people looking at your applications, they don't see that section of the application. They don't get to see that. If you have done something, you want to start getting those official court documents now, because then you can send those in and have those ready. If you've been lucky and never got caught, or you haven't done anything, accolades to you, now's not the right time to do it, right? Make sure you just are sensible. And I don't want to sound like your dad up here, but, DUIs happen, unfortunately, all the time. And if you get caught and all you get is a DUI, that's good. But if you kill somebody, then nothing means anything. So just be mindful with the decisions you make. Everything you do has a consequence. Everything. It could be good or it could be bad. And so just understand and be friends with one another and put on positive peer pressure so that you make really good decisions. And if you made bad decisions, you've done it. Be mindful of your social media. I know you've heard that. Job fairs, we're starting to wrap up, our time, and I want to have some questions for you. But when you go to those job fairs, this is kind of where I'm going to really end, and then I'll answer any questions you have, is apply to all those places you want to. Dress appropriately. Don't go with people. I mean, go with people so you carpool, but when you're there, be by yourself. Okay, don't be in a big group. Go out and high five each other, wish each other well, but go to that job fair ready for you to be you and just be in isolation. It's always more comfortable to walk around with a group of people, but you're getting a job for you. Does that make sense? So just it makes it easier for people to approach you and ask you, for information. Sometimes you may walk by me, and I don't really go to that many job fairs anymore. But if you say, well, I'm not really interested in HISD, but I'm interested in Sci-Fair, but you're polite, I could say, okay, just a second. Let me take you over to Arturo and Sci-Fair and Christina Cole and Sci-Fair. If you're interested in Pasadena Hard, let me take you over to Mike. Our people all know each other. They live with each other out on the road. And even though they're in different districts, they're all the best of friends. So keep in mind, that connection with somebody can give you a connection with somebody else. Dress appropriately. They are going to visualize you when they ask questions of you working in a classroom with kids, right? Be mindful. I'm sure you hear this from your university, but just be mindful of how you dress. It's always better to dress a little bit more professional on those days than less professional, and dress like a teacher would dress. And that doesn't mean a big sweatshirt with a school on it, and big emblems like my wife wears. It means just like just be mindful that you're going to be working with kids. Does that make sense? Am I saying that in the right way? Okay. So what questions in our last 5 minutes do you have? Oh, 5. Yeah, what questions in our last 5 minutes do you have for me? Anything at all? Anything about student teaching, the right location, about getting employed, about what we talked about today? Yes. So it depends on which job fair you go to. Most universities limit it to the state itself, but there are a lot of universities that also will allow other states to come, right? There are states around us that have severe teacher shortages. You go to a job fair, when we go to job fairs across the country, Arizona's always there, right? Arizona. Now, they don't pay a lot, and they but they have a lot of opportunities because they can't, people in Arizona don't stay in Arizona for whatever reason unless you retire. But there will be other states that are there. So if you're from out of state, you can go to those job fairs. If you want to go back home, you can sign up to go to those university job fairs. Everyone I go to out of state allows not only their own kids to go to those job fairs, but at a later period of time, you can go to those job fairs as well. Mostly it's people in state. And regardless of when you're student teaching, districts hire all year around. Every school district probably only hires about 65% of their staff at the beginning of the year. A good 35 to 40% of their staff is after school starts and in January. And January is the best time actually to get a job because as long as it's more than 90 days, it counts for a whole year. And so really you've only taught half a year, but you have a full year's of experience. You move up in the salary schedule. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, don't think school starts in January, and it does. So always be looking for jobs because they're going to be available. Okay? Any other questions? Yes. Yep. Yep. So here's three quick things. What stands out to me is that people want to come to us. If you want to, they've done their legwork ahead of time and they are one of the first to be at the table. Those people really stand out to me, right? Because I know that they were smart and they came to us first. I know that stands out to me if they've done their research and they've done the online application already. That stands out to me. I've already applied. When they pull out that letter that has, and cover letters, I mean, everybody, I don't want your university to get mad at me for saying this, but cover letters went the way of the dodo bird when online applications, but I haven't met an HR person, they might lie to you and say they do, but I haven't met an HR person in 7 years that's looked at a cover letter. So I'm not talking about a cover letter with the district name on it. I'm talking about a sheet of paper that said this is for Houston or for Sci-Fair, for wherever, just something that lets me know this resume is typically for that. Now, if your university wants to fill out a cover letter, then you fill it out, make it short and sweet, but don't stress over the cover letter. That stands out for me. What stands out for me too, and will get you a job, is if for some reason they have limited amount of interviews, and this is my resume, and in my last few seconds I'll say this, and you don't have any more spots, and I come up and I say, I know you're filled up. On here is my resume, and I've highlighted my cell phone number. If anybody cancels, I will be here till the end of the day with my cell phone. Call me, and I will be there in seconds, right? No matter how overwhelmed we are with interviews, what do you think that person's going to get? They're going to get an interview, right? So those are things that stand out. My closing statement is, thank you so much for going into teaching. It's going to be a tough road. Not going to lie to you. There's going to be days where you wonder what the hell you did. But there are far more days that just let you appreciate the opportunity that you have. Someday, years from now, kids will be asked, who is your favorite teachers? Adults will be asked who your favorite teacher is. And right now, just like I would ask you, you should be able to raise your hand immediately and tell me who your favorite teacher is and why. If we had a reunion 50 years from now, I could ask you that same question and immediately get what? Same answer. That's what you want to do. That's the change agent and difference maker you want to be. Your professors are amazing. They've prepared you to go anywhere and be a change agent, difference maker. And I hope you choose to do that. I hope you choose to be that person. And I'm honored to be able to be here today and spend 2 hours with you. And I wish you the best. Thank you very much.